Happy Families podcast. It's the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now.
I think that as parents, we get so caught up in the seriousness of it all, especially during pandemic lockdown stuff. And if we can just lighten things up with a bit of humour, oh my goodness, it can make a big difference.
And now here's the stars of our show, my mum and dad.
Well, Fridays roll around way too fast, although I guess if you're living in lockdown, New South Wales, ACT, the state of Victoria and New Zealand, it's just another day, right? But for the rest of the nation and for the rest of the world, Friday has arrived. The weekend is almost here. And you know what? Even if you're in lockdown, the weekend is still different. You don't have to do home learning on the weekend. We've got one day to go. We're almost there, which means that we're one day closer to the end of lockdown as well.
You get so excited all the time and you haven't even told everyone who we are.
You know who we are. Everyone knows who. Well, everyone knows who we are. I can't believe that I just said that. Gosh. So there's.
So you're Justin. I'm Kylie. We have 6 kids.
Our parents know who we are, and the 500 people who have left 5-star ratings and reviews on our podcast know who we are. Justin and Kylie, the Coulsons, 6 kids. What else? Happyfamilies.com.au. Let's talk about family life as we wrap up.
I think you're a bit befuddled after the wake up we got last night.
Yes. So last night, you've got to, I can't tell, I'll set it up, but you've got to tell this story. I just don't feel like it's appropriate that I tell this story. I can't believe. Have you checked with our daughter that we're going to tell this story?
You can't say that because no, I haven't.
All right. Okay. Sorry. So last night we are laying in bed, because I get up so early, it's like, 8:45 and I'm so close to sleep. And there's a knock on the door from one of our daughters who, we won't name any names.
But she's raced home from work and she's in a panic state.
She's come home from work. Now everyone's going to know who it is. Gosh. Anyway, so she's in a panic state and she's woken us both up, or woken me up. I don't know if you were awake or not, but I'm kind of like in la la land.
She's like, Mum. She said, I think I have breast cancer.
Now, we want to be really clear. We understand that breast cancer is not a laughing matter, but we're talking about a kid who's still in her teens and she's just absolutely terrified. I think I have breast cancer. And she says it like 4 or 5 times. I'm sure of it. I've got a lump.
I've got a lump. Can you feel it?
And so
I've kind of opened my eyes. I'm really groggy and I've looked at her and gone, just go to bed. It's okay. She's like, no, you have to feel it. She said, I found a lump. She was really, really panicked. So I gently tried to do an examination. She's like, no, you have to hold it hard.
And I'm like, I'm just going to keep my eyes closed facing the wall. I'm not even going to look.
Her whole breast is a lump.
She was fully clothed. I mean,
yes,
there was nothing inappropriate or weird going on except the fact that we've got this early to mid teenage girl who's convinced she's got breast cancer because she's got a lump in her.
Because her breast is a lump. That's what it was. Her entire breast is a lump.
Because she's a teenager, right? She's just a young kid. And what happened then? I think
I told her, I said, you are completely normal. Everything's intact. And she went, really? And I said, yes. And biggest smile on her face, and she skipped out of the bedroom.
Thanks, Mum.
That was the end of it.
You saved my life. Anyway, this week there's been a big week on the podcast as well as in our bedroom. It's always an adventure, isn't it, with kids? You never know what's going to happen next. This week on the podcast, we've been talking about the challenges of dealing with lockdown. Our daughters aren't even in lockdown, and we're getting these kinds of episodes. Can you imagine what they'd be like if we were going through our 10th lockdown, like Victoria?
Oh, I'm telling you, there would be so much material.
And our kids have learned that everything is material for the podcast. So on Monday, we had a very important conversation about the lack of mental health help that's available, and we spent some time talking about different things that parents can do to boost well-being when well-being is really suffering as a result of the fact that, well, gosh, you can't get into doctors you can get into doctors, but you can't get into psychologists very easily, and to get good psychological help. And we just want to emphasize again, if you need help, go get it. But if you don't, having listened to Monday's podcast, it will help you to just get clear on the basic stuff that you need to practice. And of course, there's things like Kids Helpline, Parent Line, Lifeline that can be useful.
I think the reality is so often we start to feel ourselves spiral, but we don't take the steps to help keep ourselves afloat.
Yeah.
And with the time lag and being able to get into specialists, it can be more important than ever that we take those productive steps to help ourselves.
Just got to create the habit and stick with the habit. And lockdown, it seems like it's really interesting. In some ways, lockdown, it's harder to create the habit and stick with it. And yet in other ways, it should be easier during lockdown than any other time because you know where you're going to be and what you're going to be doing every single day, which is I'm going to be at home.
I don't even have to get out of my pajamas.
Nothing changes.
That's a big thing.
Yeah. But we hope that was useful. Now, on Tuesday,
we tried to answer Carol's question.
Oh, come on. We did an amazing... You did a great job. I've still got my list in front of me of all the things we were going to talk about.
You scratched them up.
Well, I've unscrunched it because I needed the piece of paper for everything else. You did a great job answering that question. So much for me being the expert.
We talked about sibling rivalry and how we can manage that, especially during COVID.
But you don't have to be in a lockdown to be dealing with sibling rivalry. And I think that the stuff we talked about was really, really valuable. So if sibling rivalry is a challenge, we just want to point you to that.
And then on Wednesday, we spoke with Professor Lee Waters.
Lee has written a very influential recent scientific paper about all the different scientifically and empirically validated ways that we can keep our well-being up, especially during stressful times like a global pandemic. And that was a really, really great conversation. We hope that you enjoyed that one.
But my favourite
was Thursday. Why did you like that?
Well, I love being at the front line. I love hearing other voices and just hearing of their experiences and their wisdom.
Yeah, I liked it the most because it was real. Like this is...
Are we not real?
No, well, we're in Brisbane, so we're not living the lockdown life in the same way that we have been through it, but we haven't been through it for the length of time, the duration that New South Wales and Victoria and the ACT have. I mean, this is unprecedented. This is absolutely... So, and it's so unnatural. It's so hard. So hearing what parents are going through was, I just think, so valuable. So if you are in lockdown, we hope that this has been a useful week of podcast content for you. If you're not, we're still pretty confident that what we've shared would be useful to help your family to be happier. Up next, we're going to unpick our week with I'll Do Better Tomorrow, where we look at how we can reflect and be more intentional as parents in the week ahead.
It's the Happy Families Podcast.
For a happier family, try a Happy Families membership because a happy family doesn't just happen. Details at happyfamilies.com.au.
It's the Happy Families Podcast, the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now, and we're finally getting to I'll Do Better Tomorrow.
So normally on a Friday, the whole episode is all about the ups and downs of Coulson family life and the lessons that we can learn so that we can be more intentional as parents. Every now and again, we'll get some feedback. People will be like, I'll do better tomorrow. What, are you just telling us stories? It's like, no. The stories are there to serve a purpose. That is to help us as parents across the board to be more intentional with the way that we engage with our children. And I think that we've got a couple of great stories to help us with that today. And none of them involve breast examinations of children who are convinced that they have breast cancer even though they're teenagers and are perfectly healthy.
So what's your I'll Do Better Tomorrow?
So I'm going to share two stories and... No, they'll be really quick, I promise. If you could only see Kylie's face right now, she's like, gosh, you're greedy. You do all the talking all the time. I promise they'll be quick. First one, I had to take the car for a service just the other day, and one of our kids came with us. She came with me. She was driving our second car so that she could bring me home after I dropped the car off. There's a really amazing French patisserie right next to the mechanic. Down in Cleveland. It's called La Bouche, free plug, not sponsored. They don't even know that I exist, but it just amazing French bakery goods. And I dropped the car off and I said to Ella, hey, I know you're on your way to school. Would you like a French patisserie kind of treat to take to school? And she said, oh, yeah, I would. Now, the truth is I only wanted to go to the French patisserie because I needed some breakfast because I'd gone for a really long bike ride that morning and I still hadn't had anything. But I figured I'd get her a treat at the same time. So I bought a little bit of brekkie for me and a treat for Ella, a big gluten-free chocolate brownie as it happens. And while I was making that order, the phone rang. It was you. And you said, hey, just calling to find out what you're up to. And I said, oh, I've just dropped the car off and I'm grabbing a little treat for Ella for school from the bakery next door. And then I hung up the phone and said, see you later to you. And as soon as I was off the phone, Ella looked at me and she said, Dad, I don't think you were totally honest with Mum there because you're not really here for me, are you? I was like, oh, gosh. So as soon as I walked in the door, I had...
Well, the actual nail in the coffin...
Yep.
Was when you came home, me knowing full well that you had definitely brought something for you. You didn't even buy me anything.
No, I know. I know. So anyway, I'll do better tomorrow. Full truth, full disclosure at all times, or say nothing.
say nothing.
I think, or just buy Kylie a treat next time. I think that's the way.
What's your second one?
Oh, the second one's actually the I'll do better tomorrow that I wanted to share. So we've got a very clear morning routine in our home, and I walked into the bedroom because I'd called Lily for our family time. Every morning, family time, sometime around 7:15. We're flexible on it, but it's around about then. Called out to Lily, our 11-year-old, hey, come on, kiddo, it's time to get on with this. And she was nowhere. No matter how many times I called, 4 or 5 times, wasn't showing up. And then one of the kids said, Dad, she's still in bed. She's asleep. She won't get out of bed. Now, what I didn't know is that they'd set me up. So I've gone into the bedroom and there's Lily asleep in bed. She's got a hoodie covering her head, her face buried in the pillow. And I said, Lily, I've called you like 5 times. Come on, kiddo, let's go. Nothing. Like, just nothing at all. I'm like, oh, come on, this is ridiculous. And I got cross at her. I said, Lily, seriously, I don't want to have to drag you out of bed. It's time to get moving. You can't be that tired. You went to bed on time. I'm giving her this big lecture for about 15 or 20 seconds. And then I hear this laughter from out in the kitchen area, and it's Lily. And I'm like, huh? And so I've grabbed the blankets and pulled them back. There's 3 pillows underneath the blankets. The teddy bear is laying there. She's put the hoodie on her teddy.
And you were completely duped.
I was lecturing the teddy about how the teddy needed to be on time. She's out in the kitchen. She thought it was the funniest thing. And what I loved about that practical joke is it just reminded me of how, regardless of anything else that's going on in your world, if you can find humor, it lightens the load. It makes family life feel good. And I wanted to share that because intentionally, here's this kid that's played a practical joke on me and it changed the mood of our family for the rest of the morning. Not that the family was not doing well. We were actually just fine, except for the fact that Lily wasn't where she should be. But it was just fun. And I love, I think that as parents, we get so caught up in the seriousness of it all, especially during pandemic lockdown stuff. And if we can just lighten things up with a bit of humor, oh my goodness, it can make a big difference. That's my I'll do better tomorrow. What's yours?
Well, I was going to share a different experience, but based on what you shared, I think that I'll just add to that. We've had a couple of days where Miss 7 has just refused to be at school.
Yep.
She just doesn't want to go.
At all.
And so the other morning I just said to her, all right, well, your room looks like it's a mess. Why don't you clean up your room and you can spend some time in here? And I was just going to go hang the washing out. And within about 5 minutes, I get, Mom, can you come and help me get dressed? And I went in and she'd flipped.
Yep.
She'd flipped a switch all by herself because I just gave her the space to kind of work through it. But yesterday morning, she came to me and I could tell she was agitated. And when I held her, I could actually feel her heart beating. And I could just tell that she was really starting to get agitated. So I did the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 with her.
Oh, yeah. So for those of you who are not familiar with the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, you just sit with your child. And so long as they're not emotionally flooded and having a tantrum, you just say, hey, what are 5 things that you can see? What are 4 things that you can feel? What are 3 things that you can hear? What are 2 things that you can smell? And what's 1 thing you can taste?
And what was amazing was, literally, as I was holding her and I could feel her heart just pumping really, really fast and her body was stiff, but she wasn't angry. She was agitated, I could tell. And I just said, hey, can you tell me what 5 things you can see? And instantly, everything changed. And so
because it's a well-practiced thing in our home. We do this with some, not heaps, not overly, but we do it with some consistency.
So we got to 2 things you can smell.
Smell's one of her favourites, by the way. She's always been a smelly kind of kid.
It is. And you had just sprayed your deodorant, so she could smell your deodorant. And then she looked at me and she said, and I can smell your morning breath. And we just erupted into laughter, and that was the end of it. She got on with her morning.
Well, actually, there was one more. 1 thing you can taste.
Oh, it's always spit with her.
She's like, I can taste my spit. That's so gross.
I don't know what else you're supposed to say you can taste. But it just changed the morning.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, this really agitated child who really didn't want to comply with the morning routine got up, got on with it, and we got to school on time.
Amazing. Yeah. So parenting with intention, you don't have to get angry. You don't have to yell at the kids. You just have to help them be balanced and centered. Find some humor and buy treats for everyone.
And brush your teeth.
And
Clearly, before you talk to your child.
We really hope that you've enjoyed the podcast today and this week. Thank you so much for listening. If you do enjoy it, we are always very, very thankful for those of you who jump onto Apple Podcasts and leave those 5-star ratings and reviews. There's been a couple of really, really kind reviews left lately, 5 stars, and wonderful, wonderful things that have been said about the podcast. Thank you to those of you who have done that. The Happy Families podcast is produced by Justin Rulon from Bridge Media, and Craig Bruce is our executive producer. If you'd like more information about making your family happier, especially if you have tween or teen girls, please take a look at the Miss Connection Summit. It's a summit for parents of children aged 8 to 18. If you're raising girls 8 to 18, this is the summit for you, with some of Australia's very best experts talking about the things that matter most as you try to navigate those tween and then those adolescent years. All the information on the Miss Connection Summit is at happyfamilies.com.au.